welcome back to another anime review. Today we are looking at the movie called The Moment You Fall in Love, which actually acts as a sequel of sorts. I'll explain more of that in a second, to another movie I reviewed on the channel called I've Always Liked You. Now, I'll leave that in the description box below so you can check out that review if you haven't already. Now, what's very interesting about these movies is, like I said before, it's not a sequel of sorts. It is a sequel, but at the same time it's not. These are actually based off of music videos by Honeyworks. When I think they got so popular in Japan, they actually decided to make movies out of them, obviously. But what's interesting is that in the first movie we saw, Natsuki focus on a love with this other character, and in this movie we see the cast of characters that were also relevant in the first movie as more so side characters. We see them now becoming the prominent characters, the actual primary focus in this movie, which I thought was kind of cool. So the whole story of this one is that we see Hina, this, Natsuki's friend actually from the first movie, fall in love with this young boy Yu, who you might have remembered in the first movie. If you haven't seen the first movie, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it per se, but he has a very big role in the first movie. She falls in love with him because they're kind of just chance encounter, but at the same time there's a young boy named Kotaro who also loves Hina, who's trying to figure out the opportune time to tell her because he doesn't know how to really express his feelings towards her. Now, the first movie, I want to say, dealt with a concept of the beginning to a relationship and the eventual, not I want to say conclusion per se, because it makes it sound like it's a morbid ending, but more so the conclusion of just the regular kind of, oh, I like you, I'm falling in love with you, to then you becoming a couple with that person. What's interesting about this movie is we get this, when is the opportune time to ask someone out, or when is the opportune time to show that you love someone, being relevant. And that is the best thing about this movie, and also the biggest detriment to this movie. Now, the first movie, you actually get a romance story out of it. In this movie, you have a romance plot, but I don't want to call it a romance tale, because in many ways, there are a lot of issues with how the series kind of goes from the point A to the point B, or the movie, I said series, but it's that at times it feels like these characters, I get the internal struggle of it. I get that, you want to tell the person you fall in love with, you want to tell them how you feel, but you don't know when to do it. You don't know when to jump at them and say, hey, oh, listen, this is how I feel about you. And I get that as a whole plot line, but the problem is that because of that being the main centered plot here, a lot of times it feels repetitive in nature. You feel like these characters always dance around them, being in love with one another, and even more so, you feel like there are times where you just want her to say something or him to say something, and they don't do it. While the first movie, the romance actually does occur. Now, I will say right now flatly, I like the first movie a lot better than the second one. Is that a big deal breaker? No, by any means. These are two different movies. They're two different plots entirely. And I do think that there's a lot of great things about this movie. I mean, the animation is stellar. Each character is very uniquely drawn, uniquely stylized. And that's very rare for any type of romance movie, because, I mean, for the most part, you usually get characters that all look the same, or these all have, like, a very unique development to them and way of being, which is really cool. And also, the music and, Honeyworks does some great stuff, but it's really relevant in this movie, and obviously it's probably one of the center parts of a lot of the scenes where you have, like, the montages or the scenes where characters are falling in love with one another and really not showing it right away on screen. You have that musical interlude that you need to be playing in the background, and it's just really strong. It does a really good job of that. But in the end, it just feels like this movie could have been a lot better if maybe they would have gone an actual place with a story. I feel like because they keep dancing around with the concepts of eternal love and stuff like that, it falters very fast, and it kind of falls apart near the end. But it does have a cute ending. I agree with this other person I was talking to, where the ending is really strong. And the problem is, though, is that, I wanted the ending to be stronger. I wanted to have this oomph to it. And by the way, the other person I'm mentioning, by the way, is Lita Kino. She actually just seen the movie. I'll leave a link to her channel in the description box, as well as, my review for the first movie. But, I was telling her, like, to me, the ending, wasn't bad, but it wasn't what I wanted, per se. And I think a lot of people are going to have that same sentiment when you see it. I'm not going to spoil it, obviously, because this is a spoiler-free movie review, but it just doesn't have that. So that's why if I had to review this between an A through F, I have to give it a B-. Like I said before, it's still a good movie. If you love the first movie, you'll have a lot of appreciation for this movie, definitely. You'll love that you see a lot of your favorite characters from the first movie reappear here. You'll love that you get more elements to some of the other cast of characters that you saw in the first movie. And in many ways, like I said before, it's kind of cool that it's a sequel of sorts, but it's a parallel story. And I think that's a really strong thing that was accomplished here. But the end result and, you know, in terms of the story in general, they do take hits for how they do with the plot. And I get that, you know, you're supposed to take away from this movie that you should sometimes take the opportune moment. Because, I mean, if anything from this movie you're going to learn, and this is not spoiling anything, but it's going to be something you learn, you know, you have to sometimes jump at opportunities. If someone, you know, you fall in love with is there, you have to say something to them. You can't keep dancing around like, oh, I'll do it next week, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll find a better chance to do it. Because obviously then something's going to happen. It's going to be like, oh shit, I should have did it earlier, I waited too long. But anyways, guys and girls, I will talk to you later. As always, if you enjoy my reviews, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share the video, you know the whole nine. Until our paths crossing in the next review, have a good one, everyone. Bye bye.